packet, let me know. I got one extra one.
All right, we're live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Wow, you guys really came out for some information that's so vital for what you're doing. I can't tell you how huge it is. And I said in class, Todd will know, I said in the class and I was like, what? Because before it was all about the clients. Now it's all about you guys. It's about, you guys have a snippet in it too, a big snippet involved in it. But thank you for coming. If you saw that I put this out for you for other classes. I have 2 classes coming up this week, 2 live classes in my main office. And my address is on my card that you got a packet from me. It's on my card, my cell number. I tell everybody to store my cell number because you will need it one day. You don't work 8 to 5, you work 24/7. Whenever your clients make that phone, I sold, so I get it. I was a realtor also, so I understood. And sitting and taking this time out of your day sitting here is vitally important because if you're wasting your time, guess what? The one thing you can't get back? Time. So we don't bring you out to waste your time. We bring you out to educate you, to give you the tools that you need to help take your business to the next level. We have a lot of classes going on. Not only do you see there with your phone from the convenience of your home, go for it, wherever you are, go for it to get the education that you need, vitally important. The other thing I'd like to say is we have a class on a Thursday. Thursday is goal setting. If you've not set your goals, guess what they say? If you have not planned anything, you're planning to fail. So you need to plan. I have an expert. This guy, he was like top of the set when talking sales, top of the line in this industry. And he's coming to spend time with me and help give you guys some tools to help your 2023 go to the next level. Okay? Sometimes we just need a little nudge, somebody to give us a little push. Sometimes a little something different than what we've heard, and he's going to bring that different. The next class I have is a 1031 exchange class. You work with investors, you need to be at that class. So have you guys ever received emails from me? If I can see the hands that have received an email from me. Okay, so if you don't know, you will be getting from classes from me. I'll even go back and send this classes coming up Thursday and Friday. It's at my office. It's an intimate setting where you can ask a lot of questions and get a lot of information and feed off each other. The most important thing is if you're working with an investment investment agent, you want to make sure that you give him what he needs, the information that he needs. So it's not for you, and everything that Todd is going to bring you, it's not for you to know, I got it now. No, it's for you to know, oh, I need to make a phone call. If you're sitting in a format where they're talking and it's going over your head, you're doing your client a disservice. You need to know, oh, wait a minute, I just heard that. I just make a phone call because your job is Todd's going to tell you your job is to sell a house. And you know a guy or you know a girl, you know a guy or a girl. Put us in your phone so whenever something's going down that you need us to step in and help you with, guess what? You make a phone call. It's just that simple. I heard that. I need to make a phone call. Now you hand your client over to someone that can help them get the information that you need. And then the other thing I have when coming, oh, you guys can please come. We're doing everything on the champagne and everything on the chocolate on Thursday at my office. And you've got my card. My main office and it's right in front of Glenlock Farms. It's Champion Forest in Spring Cypress. So bring a friend and come and hang out with us. Guys, we do so much fun things. We do breakfasts for you guys. We flip pancakes. We do it all just to give you a moment. You guys work so hard and you need to relax. I know I was like a machine. Someone just kept winding me up when I was selling. Yeah. And I just kept running. So you need to unplug. So grab a friend to come hang out with us and enjoy chocolate champagne and some real food too. But come here, have a moment with us. We really want you to come and hang out with us. And we always have something to give to you. So we have giveaways. We're going to give it away at the end of the class. And this guy is most important that you can't. Oh my God! If we can clone him, we could conquer the world. We could conquer the world. This
You're overselling him.
No, I'm not. I'm not just saying that this guy's so sharp, and you're gonna see when he starts to talk, and you're gonna hear something I did not know. But anyways, thank you. This is Tom Callis. He's over our education department. We have a true education department. We write our classes with a realtor's perspective, and that's what he's doing.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I was out last week with the viral, so if I cough a little, I promise you I'm not contagious.
Yeah, I had to shut down the class because
I could clear a room in 2.5 seconds with a cough. So. Today we're going to talk about FIRPTA. How many of you have had or know what a FIRPTA transaction is? 2, 3. Anybody else? 4. You've had one or you know what it is?
I had it, I think you close it.
Yes, that's
They
right.
The
Oh my gosh.
color drive or something.
Yes, that's right. That's why I know you from closing.
Okay, so FIRPTA, as I call the real estate F word, Foreign Investment Real Property Tax Act. How many of you people have dealt with foreign sellers or foreign buyers? Okay, if you haven't, you will, right? Houston is the 4th largest city in the United States, and we are also the number 2 most diverse city in the United States.
Oh, we're not number 1 anymore?
It's foreign investment property.
The last thing I heard was we were 1, and then somebody reminded me in the class that we're 2. So 1 or 2.
I was telling you what the FIRPTA means.
Foreign Investment Real Property Tax Act. All right. Now, everybody thinks that this is new, right? We're starting to hear about this. It's not new. It's been around since 1980. Congress wrote the regulations for the FIRPTA Transaction Real Property Tax Act in 1980. So back in the 80s or back in the 70s, people were coming into the United States, buying property here in the United States, right? And then letting it grow, and then selling it, and then going back to where they came from, right? Canada, Mexico. Were they paying taxes on their property? Who wants taxes on property? Uncle Sam, right?
Not us, right?
And if Uncle Sam's not getting what he perceives to be what he should be getting, he's gonna fix it, isn't he? So, now they've written the regulations for the Property Tax Act. We're gonna talk about those. They were adjusted in 2015, effective February of 2016, where it breaks down the values of the properties and how the value of property is affected by a percentage that is withheld for the tax withholding, all right? So, I get this question all the time, but how do I know that my seller is a foreign person? Does anybody want to ask, or anybody want to share?
Last question that, how is the mortgage and deed and that the company?
I don't find out.
How does title find out?
By asking them if they are a USA citizen or alien residents.
Okay, so I want to address that. Ask title. How is title going to find out if somebody is a foreign person?
They start asking for all the identifying information.
Not before you've gone on a listing appointment.
Mortgages, no, not mortgage.
So remember that the one thing is you cannot look to your title company to find out if somebody is a foreign person. The reason why is the only information that a title company can gather is what is filed of public record. It is not filed of public record that I am an American citizen. It is not filed of public record that somebody is a foreign person, right? So therefore, it has to come from the questions. As a listing agent, where is that question asked for you?
It's a section in the listing agreement.
Say it again.
There is a portion of the listing agreement where it's asked if there are foreign.
Very last question on the listing agreement, isn't it?
Yeah.
Says, are you a foreign person? So as a listing agent, when you are going to take a listing, you need to make sure that when they complete that listing agreement and they're signing it, that they have X'd that box. You know right from the very beginning whether or not you have a foreign seller. What does that allow you to do as a realtor? It allows you to set an expectation and not have any surprises coming, oh, I don't know, at the closing table. Because everybody loves those, right?
Right.
Yeah. We do too, just so you know. But also in the contract, paragraph 20 says federal tax requirements. If the seller is a foreign person as defined by applicable law, or if the seller fails to deliver an affidavit to the buyer that the seller is not a foreign person, then the buyer shall withhold from the sales proceeds an amount sufficient to comply with the applicable tax law and deliver the same to the IRS together with the appropriate tax forms. Internal revenue regulations require filing written reports of currency, blah, 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 blah. What? Out of this paragraph right here, can anybody tell me what their understanding is, whose responsibility it is to withhold the FIRPTA withholding?
The title and buyer.
Buyer shall withhold from the sales proceeds. Okay? So it's not the job of the title company to do it for you. It's the buyer's job to do it for you. So there are many title companies out there that will not close these transactions and handle the FIRPTA part of the transaction. They will tell you that you need to go to a tax attorney or an accountant, and they need to handle that. So imagine you have a buyer. Hey, Mr. Seller, I understand you're a foreign person. I'm gonna need you to give me a check for $45,000 made payable to the IRS, and you need to sign an 8288 and an 8288A, and I'm gonna mail that to the IRS for you. Is that okay?
That already sounds like You are fired.
Really? I mean, it's almost ludicrous how the government wrote the policy, right? But remember, think about why they would have written it this way.
Because the seller needs and who's responsible for paying the taxes.
Boom! And if the tax is not withheld and the IRS finds out about the sale, what's gonna happen?
They turn to the buyer.
Or the buyer's gonna pay for it.
How about a what?
A lien on the property.
A property lien.
Of property.
Oh. Which the buyer ends
Yes,
up paying for.
that's right. That is not protected by the title company's own title policy, which is why the title company is not going to process a FIRPTA transaction for you.
So, I want to make sure I'm understanding this. When we're doing a listing appointment, buyers come and that, if she's a foreign person, I really need to go to her and say, hey, you need to write me a check for the government code.
Well, not quite like that.
Oh, I'm just saying. Oh, yeah, I wanna understand how I need to approach that.
And you will,
Yeah,
I
okay,
promise.
okay.
But the point that I'm making here is that as a buyer's agent, can you imagine putting your buyer into the position of being required to withhold funds? How much do I withhold?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, outgoing referral, sure.
So that's why the buyer would.
Call your competitor you lost your last listing to, got a referral for you. So now we can start talking about how do we address a situation like this, right? First of all, to tell you, Texas American Title is a really, really, really large company, okay? Nationally, we close transactions in 49 states, okay? So we've also got divisions of ourselves where we have a tax entity that does all of this for us.
So you do close.
We close FIRPTA transactions, right? So it's not a question whatsoever. If you call us and say, hey, Cammie, Todd, Vanessa, whoever, I just found out that I've got a foreign seller. What's my next step? Let me know when you write a contract. Okay? We'll get you to the closest Texas American that's most convenient for that property. And then we're going to get in touch with Roberge Pascas, who is our firm that handles these for us. Okay? Now, it's a $250 charge. Who's going to pay that?
The buyer?
Seller.
Why? Because the seller's the foreigner,
Yeah.
right? So therefore, but at the end of the day, our company is actually creating all the documentation that is required to be signed by the IRS, sending it to us. We've got it all signed at the closing table. We're cutting the check on the closing disclosure. We're signing the check to the IRS. We're mailing and overnighting the check and the 8288 and the 8288A to the IRS because it's required to be delivered to, okay, wrong slide. It's required to be delivered to the IRS within 20 days of the transaction funding and closing. 20 days. Okay?
Todd made this form, the appointment checklist. It's a little blurry, but don't worry about it. We're gonna give you a better copy in the
So I created this document about 10 years ago. It helps you as a listing agent get any red flags out of the way right up front. All right. The thing about this form is that when you go to your listing appointment, they're signing that listing agreement, and you also have them complete this. You've got a red flag. We've got days on market plus contract time to clear that problem.
Thank you.
We don't find out about that problem when we get the title commitment and everybody goes to Schedule C and finds out there's a big something going on. Because at that point, how much time do we have? About 20 days. Okay. So now if you think about your average days on market plus your 30-day contract time, that's the time that we have to fix a problem that potentially shows up on this. If they tell the truth.
That's the key.
And the truth. So, as the regulations are written, the settlement agent's role is not to receive and disperse proceeds for FIRPTA transactions, record documents, performing clerical tasks, so on and so on and so on. So what they're saying is, it is not the title company's responsibility or the title escrow agent's responsibility to handle the FIRPTA transaction. It is the buyer's. Okay? Now, let's define a foreign person. Who, does anybody want to guess who is defined as a foreign person? Okay, one person at a time.
Eager, I love it.
And what?
Anyone not born here?
Anybody not born here is a foreign person.
Without a US citizenship.
Okay?
Someone is not filing income tax.
No, not necessarily. Foreign persons file, excuse me, foreign persons file a US tax return.
Anybody that's in a visa that is not a residency alien card.
Anybody who is not in possession of an immigrant visa or a green card. So if you've got somebody who was born in the United States, or they are in possession of an immigrant visa, we have no problems. All right? Anybody else, we've got a transaction problem.
But if someone have a H1 visa or something,
Those persons that has visa for work, for temporary work.
So that's the key word here.
Or-
People can come here from a foreign company on a
Exactly.
work visa.
Or a
And
temporary-
that is applicable to taxes on employment funds. It does not pay taxes on the sale of property.
Because he's
so-
here, right?
I'm
They
sorry?
are here, because they are here, they are working.
They are here working through a visa. And if they say, like ExxonMobil, let's take ExxonMobil for example, okay? You guys are not far from going out towards 99 and that whole corridor between I-10 and 45 that was built because of ExxonMobil, right? It was our promise to them because that would open the whole grid between the energy corridor and I-10, right? And everything up to the new campus for ExxonMobil in Spring. And anything in between. And you all have benefited extremely well because of all of the construction that's going on out to 90. I don't know where I am around here, wherever we are. Out to 90, past 99. So all of those, I live in Pearland, so I don't know everything out here. So, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
That allowed all of that construction to come in, which is beneficial for you guys, right? So typically when we think about ExxonMobil or any of the other very large oil petroleum companies, and we're just going to keep it at oil petroleum for now because Texas is becoming a mega city for companies to be moving their national headquarters because of our very good tax establishments. So it's not just about oil and petroleum, okay? It's also about, I don't know, Tesla. It's also about Amazon. It's also about a whole bunch of other things, right? So at any rate, when somebody's here for, let's say, on a contractual job with ExxonMobil for 3 to 5 years, they may want to buy real estate because not as much now, but like in 19 to 22, good Lord, people were selling their home for gazillions of dollars more than what they bought it for, right? So it's not necessarily the case right now, but it's still not a bad situation if you're gonna be here for 5 years. You put a good fair amount of chunk of money down, you're still gonna make money at the end of the day on that transaction, just because of our market.
When you
What
say
is-
green card, are you saying passport?
No, I am saying a government issued green card. Green cards are issued to foreign persons, which allows them to have a status as a tax-paying individual in the United States for a period of 10 years.
So what about the ones with the passport?
You are not getting a passport, an American passport, if you are not an American citizen. Even if you have a green card, you are here in the United States, your passport is from your country of origin.
Yeah, the first is green card, and then 5 years, you're gonna be citizen, and then when you're citizen, you get the passport, American passport.
Ideally, yes. Ideally, when you have a green card, the 10 years is enough time for you to establish citizenship. Then you can get your American passport.
For your US citizen.
Right. Now, I've got a friend who's a Canadian. She's been here for 30 years. She's on her 3rd green card. She has no intention of becoming an American citizen, right? She flies with a Canadian passport.
If she was here foreign,
Please tell you a funny story about the other Canadian.
that would be considered foreign, she won't pay taxes.
No, because she
No, she pays
pays
taxes.
She has
permanent
a
green
card.
Yes, she pays taxes because she has a green card, which also provides a TIN, a tax identification number.
So what kind of card you need not to pay taxes on?
Too late,
Um,
Sheila, too late.
That would be called a death certificate.
You don't want that one.
You still have to file your taxes. when
You do.
Yes.
You do. My mom had been dead for a year and I still had to file taxes for her. I am not kidding you. So also, we're gonna talk about a substantial presence test. It says that even if you are a foreign person, if you can pass the substantial presence test, a foreign person without an immigrant visa can still pass the substantial presence test and not be required to withhold funds. All right, it's a little tricky, but we can do it. Disregarded entity. You've got a foreign person that says, I'm gonna create, yes.
Okay, just with the presence test. So I had a transaction where a seller had been living here for 30 plus years and he had owned that property for 15 years, but he wasn't a resident or a US citizen. He had a 19 number. So he got terminal illness and he's like, I'm gonna go retire and move to Mexico and take this money, and by surprise, he was being withhold the FIRPTA. So how about that presence test will apply if he had been living here for so long and owned that property, and he was still being charged that FIRPTA tax. So at the end of the day, the way we resolved it was that the buyer was willing to sign a form saying that she was gonna live in the house for at least 2 years.
For 2 6-month consecutive periods for 2 years.
So, but he was not passing that presence test, even though that had been his primarily residence for 15 years. And so, just trying to understand, as I deal with a lot of buyers that only have a 19 number.
Presence test is on the next screen, we're gonna
Okay.
talk about it.
Okay.
So let's say you have a foreign person that comes into the United States. I'm a foreign person, I wanna buy a house, but I don't wanna pay a withholding. So I'm gonna create an American LLC. Okay? And I'm gonna buy this property with my LLC. My LLC will be entitled to the property, my American LLC will be entitled to the property. Therefore, I'm going to avoid paying withholding, right? No. Because when we close a corporation or we close an LLC or we close any of these other things, we've got to have signing papers. We've got to have legal docs. Those legal docs tell us who the legal signers are for the LLC, the corporation, the company, whatever the case may be. And that person on that American LLC is, whatever his name was, a foreign person. Therefore, he will pay a withholding. So here, entity is not a US corporation or a partnership.
So how big did we say the withholding will be like that?
Oh, we're gonna talk about it,
Okay, that's.
but a withholding can be up to 15% of the sales price.
How much?
15%. So on a $300,000 home, which is the average sales price home in the in Houston, Texas, that's 45 grand right off the top. No, I'm kidding. No, yeah, I'm serious. Excuse me. I'm not gonna kid about 45 grand. Okay. Then you think about 6% because that's what they're contractually bound to you for, right? That's 21%. Boom. Gone. It's a lot of money that might wipe them to the point where they're not going to be able to take that money to buy a new home.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why that form that he put together, you're gonna get it in a better format. That's why this is so important. Because they're gonna get mad at you guys first.
The other thing that I want to tip into here right now is if you have a buyer, if you do any kind of relocation, you get a referral, or you get a referral from a friend whose sister's moving in, or whatever the case may be. Two things that you as realtors should always know and think about when you're taking a listing or you're talking to a seller. A, always assume that your seller is selling community property homestead. Always assume it's community property homestead. If you've only talked to one person on the telephone, you need to ask that person if anybody else will be joining in the sale of that property. Okay, you can also identify that in CAD. Now remember that CAD's not always 100%, but it's better than nothing. Okay, so if you've talked to Susie Seller and you've been in an appointment with Susie Seller, and you're going to see Susie Seller, when you were looking at HCAD, Galveston CAD, whatever CAD you're looking at, you notice that Stanley's entitled with Sally, Susie, whatever I call her, in the ownership line. You need to ask Susie when you meet her. In preparing for today's meeting, I noticed that Stanley was entitled to the property with you. Will he be joining you in the sale of this property? Now that's going to create a conversation, right? You're going to hear about how Stanley cheated, or you're going to hear about how Stanley died. Neither story is best,
Right.
but it's one of the two. Okay, so always assume as a listing agent, your properties are going to be community property homestead. The second scenario is when you've got a buyer coming in, always assume that there's a traveling spouse. Remember that Texas is married or single. We do not acknowledge legal separation. So we've had a customer that came in with ExxonMobil, was going to buy a house. We went to closing at my Woodlands office. And the closer handed this guy the marital status affidavit at the closing. And he said, well, I'm legally separated. And she had to say, no, you're not. You're married, and we're going to need to get your wife involved. How did that go?
Did they close on that day or no?
No. So it's an easy fix.
Yeah.
All we had to do was call the wife and say, can we email you a non-homestead affidavit and have you execute it in front of a notary and get it back to us? That's all we needed. Had the realtor ask questions right up front. Will there be somebody joining you in the purchase of this property? So on and so on and so on. You need to know what their marital status is so you can set that expectation.
Easy. Put this form in front of them and let them fill it out.
Okay? So there's that term again, set the expectation.
So that's only assuming if the spouse is on the property with that person, right? Okay.
Right, but you need to know if there's a spouse. Okay? Remember, here in Texas, we got it real easy. You said I do, you get 50.
With no time frame.
With no time frame.
No time frame.
Okay?
You can do it right.
If you publicly say
Yeah.
that.
Also,
Todd,
Oh,
would
thank
you
you for
explain
that.
lady? What she was saying, she was asking a question if you publicly
If you publicly claim that you're married to somebody, you're married.
In Texas, you are married.
Yeah.
It's the cheap way in, it's still expensive getting out.
If you file your taxes together, you're married.
Got him.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that people think are cute, like, oh yeah, we're married.
I know, right?
If you're not married, do not say you're married. Right?
The only exception is the property that is yours, will to you, that's separate.
Yeah, I mean, we're going down rabbit holes here, but yes. If you are married and you receive a property as a gift or as an inheritance, it is considered to be sole and separate property until you move into it with your spouse.
And then you get,
Wait,
you're gonna be.
Please say it again.
That's a whole different, it's a whole different class, but if you acquire property as a married person from a gift or an inheritance, it is sole and separate property unless you move you and your spouse into it. So you get grandma's beach house on Tiki Island,
Right.
it's yours until you make it your primary residence with your spouse.
I had that.
And then it's no longer yours.
I had that situation.
Oh, we all do.
These things are awesome.
Well, not the wife, the person, because she claimed it as a homestead once. So she said, I'm not signing unless I get money. So she ended up getting money at closing for her signature.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some people are just dumb enough to know enough. So let's talk about the substantial presence test. The substantial presence test says that you have been in the country, residing in the property for a minimum of 31 days for the current year. All right? If you've got a foreign seller, do not close in January.
You just had one postponed to February because of that.
February 1, all day long. January 31 and prior, do not close a foreign seller. Because you must be in the property as a resident for a minimum of 31 days for the current year.
20 years before that, but got it.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, so a situation like yours may have been that your seller, if you closed your seller in January, I'm just saying, and he lived in the house for 20 years prior to that, if he's not in the house for 31 days this month or last month, too bad. And Uncle Sam don't play.
After the 31 days, he's considered.
He's considered to have been in his property long enough to avoid a withholding on taxes for this year. However, we're going to go back 2 more years, just because we can. So the total over the current year plus the 2 prior years needs to be 183 days. Now you're thinking 183 days, well, there's 365 days in a year. That's no big deal, right? Guess what? So you get full day credit. Like if you're in the house today for 24 hours, you get a full day credit. Like one 24-hour period is 1 day. So let's go to last year, 2022. 1 full day is worth 1/3 of 1 day. Okay, let's go back 1 more year, 2021. 1 full day is worth 1/6 of 1 day. Oh, this is gonna freak you out. Because that's the way the regulation is written.
So they're changing, they change it every year?
No, it's this way every year since 1980, since FIRPTA was signed by the government. So it says that all of the days you are present in the current year and 1/3 of the days you were present in the year prior to the current year, and 1/6 of the days you were present second year prior to the current year. So let's just take 120 days. So the current year, you're in the house for 120 days. You're getting 120 days. Okay? The prior year, you were in the house for 120 days. However, because you only get 1/3, you're getting 40 days credit for 2022. And then for 2021, you're in the house for 120 days. You get 20 days of credit for the whole year. All right? So you've got 120 plus 40 plus 20 is 180 days. You're shy 3 days. You have a withholding.
So is this just, okay, for me, I'm asking this for me. This is just knowledge that's good to know, but if I come to y'all handle all this, right?
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
no, there's gonna be a test. And then you'll never-
Again, I said, this class is to give you information so you'll know enough to pick up the phone.
Gotcha, okay, I just wanna make sure I can.
All of our classes are designed to give you guys information enough to know, I need to call title,
Okay.
right? This is bigger than me. I need to call somebody.
So we're not enjoying.
We have to make sure it's not to close on January 31st.
1 through 31.
Okay, got it. That's important for us.
Don't do
So
it.
you can take a listing appointment, but the closing date will be in February after. It's okay, right?
If you have a seller that is a foreign person,
Uh-huh.
you get a contract from a buyer's agent wanting to close on January 30th, you put February 1st in that contract.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Got it.
And within the contract, you would know.
And it's also, I'm sorry, contracts are written on or before.
Yes, yes.
No, before.
Right.
How do you know from the listing that it's a foreign listing?
It's in your listing agreement.
That form I just gave
The
you.
very last question. Plus, if you utilize this form right here, at the very bottom, it asks citizenship. Are you a US citizen? Yes or no? If the answer is no, do you have a green card? Yes or no? If you see that no, they are not an American citizen, but yes, they've got a green card, you're good to go.
I mean,
Don't even let the sweat build up on your brow.
being a buyer's agent.
You need to ask questions.
That's the same,
Most
that
of
can work for
them,
either or.
Listing
The
the
form.
person.
Actually, we
they
also
put it
have
there.
We have a buyer.
We have a buyer.
Find one.
Yeah. Sometimes listing you can put it as, salaries for in person.
So the thing is when you, on the paragraph that I read that was from the contract, it says if the seller fails to deliver a notice or disclosure, if you find out in your listing that you know that you have a foreign person, you are obligated to disclose that in realtor notes in HAR or MLS, whatever you want to call it. That way you're setting the expectation to the buyer's agent. We have a foreign person. Okay. Also, just to kind of piggyback on that, if you have, and it kind of goes with what I was saying before, if you have a buyer coming in and you find out through questions of whatever type you are asking, you find out that your buyer is a foreign person, you are ethically obligated to let them know that they may be withholding. They may have to withhold at the time that they sell. If they don't become a US citizen prior to selling, there may be a withholding.
Up to 15%.
Up to 15%. Okay.
We have to disclose that to the buyer.
You have to disclose it to the buyer that the foreign is a seller person, is a foreign person.
So if you are representing the buyer and the buyer is a foreign person, I have to let you know that.
Oh, if you have a buyer that is a foreign person, you need to let them know that they're more than welcome to buy property, but that when they go to sell it, they may be held liable for a 15% withholding because they are a foreign person.
So you have to if you're working with a foreign buyer, you have to let them know also that really.
In the future.
So, if all of a sudden, let's say you had a foreign buyer, You sold them a property.
Uh-huh.
They lived here for 4 years. They call you to list it because that's what they're supposed to do, right?
Right.
So they call you and you're talking to them, and all of a sudden you say, okay, so I just want to let you know that there may be a 15% withholding because you're a foreign person. Why haven't you told us this before? That's about exactly how that conversation would go. Why didn't you tell me this before? Right? So, as a realtor, just to be transparent, let them know right up front. Okay? The rules didn't change in the last 4 years that you owned the house.
So who can buy?
Anyone.
Anybody can buy a house.
If you have money and a job and approved for it.
Or cash.
Any visa status?
Works fine.
We like cash,
Just not
Later
real.
on the money and the cash.
not monopoly money, cash.
I mean, the people who come from outside, like the foreign people,
Foreign persons.
anybody.
Anybody.
As long as
And,
it's
and,
not on
and,
the
it's, and,
list.
it's, and it's just not people coming from our southern border or our northern border. It's anybody coming from any country. Any country.
As
If
long
you're
as
not
it's
an
on the
American
list.
citizen,
There's a list that it can't be.
or if you're not in possession of an immigrant visa, AKA green card. We had a situation at one of our offices in Sugar Land, where properties tend to be expensive. And this gentleman was selling a $4.2 million home. And he was a foreign person and he had let his green card expire. He canceled the listing and reapplied for his green card.
It's cheaper.
Can you imagine what 15% on 4.2 million is?
Not good.
Okay, I mean, it's a lot of money. Just right off the top of my head, it's 400, it's like 580,000. It's about $600,000
That he would have to pay.
that he would have to have withheld.
Yeah.
Comparing
So we're
1,000.
We're gonna talk about the withhold versus pay, all right? It's important that you understand.
So say you send in this check, but you've always paid all your taxes, you get. What happens?
So that's a good question, and I'm gonna address that. So there are certain days that you cannot claim as substantial presence days as a foreign person. And the days are days that you commute to work from the US, from a residence, work into the US from a residence in Canada or Mexico, days that you are in the US for less than 24 hours, days that you are in the US as a crew member of a foreign vessel, days that you are unable to leave the US because of medical condition that develops while you are in the US, or days that you are an exempt individual. So let's talk a little bit about exempt. So you've heard me say 8288 and 8288A. There is an 8288B form that if a seller feels as though he or she or they are or should be exempt from a withholding, they can file this withholding with the US government. Plan on about 3 months. Okay, so, yeah. And this is what I was talking about with the disregarded entity, and a business entity is a foreign person, gets an LLC, so on and so on and so on, okay? So how the general application of the FIRPTA works is the transferee, which is also the buyer, is required to deduct and withhold 15% of the total realized gross sales price, not proceeds. It's a big difference. Okay. Any liability assumed by the transferee in the transaction by the transfer of the foreign seller. The transferee has 20 days from the date of transfer to forward the amount withheld, along with the completed IRS forms 8288 and 8288A to the IRS. A transferee who fails to withhold proper amount may be liable for the payment of the tax, applicable penalties and interest, possible civil and criminal penalties. Remember, Uncle Sam don't play. Okay. And remember that while the seller should be paying that, if the buyer, as the responsible party to withhold from the seller, does not, as I was saying earlier, a lien will be put onto that property, and it will be the buyer's responsibility to clear the lien. And it's not covered by the owner's title policy. It will come out of their pocket. Okay.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If I'm a buyer, American family, let's say, and then they're buying this house from a foreign family, I don't know if they're foreign or not. I can just call title and say, hey, are the sellers foreigners? And they should be able to tell me.
Title companies are not going to be able to tell you whether or not somebody is foreign because it's not filed a public record, somebody's American or non-American status. You have to ask the listing agent. Now, one of the things is, when you're talking about that, I showed you the contract, paragraph 20.
Yes, and I completed that with one of my sellers, but since I don't have that contract for I can't see their contract, I wouldn't know. So I'll just ask the listing agent, and let's say that he or she says, yes, my seller is a foreigner. So then let's say there's this house that's $100,000.
You don't want to just assume that you should be calling and asking, okay? So the thing about this is it's a very touchy thing. People get very about it. So what you want to do is either A, you ask every single transaction that you have, are you an American citizen? Do not ask if you are a foreigner. That's a violation of the U.S. federal housing laws. Okay, we don't need a Texan out there saying, you foreigner? No. Okay. You need to ask, are you an American citizen? No, I am not. Are you in possession of a green card? If you do that with every single customer, you cannot be accused of discrimination. In a situation like that, what I would often, or what I have told buyer's agents in the past is, hey, listing agent, I'm going over the final points on our contract for a property listed at da-da-da-da. We're going to be making an offer. I'm discussing paragraph 20 with my buyer. Is there anything that needs to be disclosed? Right? First thing the listing agent is going to be like, what's paragraph 20? I'm not lying to you. But remember that the way that I teach brand new agents is when you have a fully executed contract, that contract means that you have discussed all paragraphs, whether you filled in a line or not, with your customer, because they are agreeing to all paragraphs of that contract, not just the ones that you're filling in the line. So that's why you could say paragraph 20, addressing foreign status, or however you would like to put it. But you don't ever, and then you also really should do that every time you have a buyer. So you could say, it's my standard operating procedure. This is how I do this.
Wouldn't the seller have disclosed in HAR that it is a foreign?
Now, no, the seller doesn't disclose anything in HAR. The listing agent will.
Yes.
However, a lot of people don't know to do that. So you cannot rely on the fact that the listing agent doesn't know to do that. And you certainly cannot look at the name and assume that somebody's a foreigner in this city. Any more than you could look at somebody who has the last name Smith and assume that they're an American. You just can't do that in this city. It just doesn't work, right? So you need to be very careful as a realtor, both buying and selling, the words that are coming out of your mouth. Okay?
Again, please don't think I'm harping on what he's talking about, what I'm saying. This form will save you your life. It will make it so easy. I'm going to send you the buy side that he put together. This is the listing side. If you include it in all of your listing presentations, when you submit all
it
your
has saved
documents,
lawsuits before.
It saves you. Because when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, this is good. So he put it
It has gotten agents out of lawsuits before. So, yay. So okay, so now we're going to talk about exemptions. So the way that the US regulations are written is that if a property is selling and you have a foreign seller, the property is $0 to $300,000, and the buyer is going to stay in the property for a minimum of 50% for the occupied time of the property for 2 consecutive years, there will be no withholding. Okay, so the buyer must be in the property for 6 months and 1 day for 2 consecutive calendar years from the day of closing. He or she or they, as the owners, can rent it out the other 5 months and 30 days, but the buyer must stay in the property for 6 months of the occupied time of the property, all right, for 2 consecutive years.
Is for foreign person or anyone?
Anyone.
That's if the buyer.
Nothing to do.
If
with
the buyer, now the buyer, if it's a buyer, you still need to stay. You may be withheld for, you may have to pay a withholding because at the time of this closing, it's probably not a $300,000 house anymore, right? Okay, so again, think about that when you're doing the transaction. Now, if you've got a property that's $300,000 but not more than 1 million, the withholding is going to be 10%. It doesn't matter if you're going to occupy the property or not. It's 10%.
Can we go back at the previous slides, if it is less than the 300%, they still will have to withhold the 15%, right?
If it's less than $300,000, the buyer must reside in the property for 50% of the time of 2 12-month consecutive periods.
They'll sign a form at closing. that
They
says,
will sign,
"We promise that we're
they
gonna do
will
this."
sign that blood, and they will sign that document stating that they are agreeing that they will stay in that house.
What if the buyer don't want to sign it because sometimes you could plan to it and then they have to.
Then we withhold.
They have to be there.
This is Amanda.
Hi, everybody. I came in late,
She's one of our escrow officers. She's an escrow officer on ours.
Okay, so there has to be a withhold if the buyer is not willing to sign.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
I know that some communities, require the person to be their main residence before they'll let them buy a house.
Okay.
Is this the buyer?
Explain that to me. I'm sorry.
Some communities, will, see if the person if it's gonna be their main residence, because they're trying to cut back on people.
VRBOs and such.
Yeah.
HOAs and VRBOs and such like that. Yeah, yeah. That's HOA is addressed in our Schedule B, but that we're insuring around the HOA.
Okay.
HOA has their thing.
Okay.
We have nothing to do. We are saying no to HOA, and we're not going to be held accountable for anything that the HOA puts forward.
Okay.
Louis?
Can you go over the corporation difference? Is it the same, treated the same as an LLC? Or
Yes.
a foreign person?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's saying there that if the buyer is a corporation, even if they're just putting in their LLC, but they're gonna live in the house, they can't withhold. Like, it has to be a person owning the house, not an LLC.
Yeah.
Because an LLC is not a person.
Right.
Right. So if they had a mixed LLC with a citizen, all of this wouldn't matter?
If an LLC was entitled to the property, it's going to matter.
No, I'm saying if it was a US citizen and a non-US citizen, like, because the corporation.
So to address that, if you have a person that is a non-foreign, is an American citizen, and one that is not, the sales price gets split by 50%, and 50% of the sales price is taxed at the 15%.
Okay.
So even put out a trust.
A trust and an estate, I think are a little different.
A trust and estate are a little bit different, and that would be addressed by our attorneys, and they would make the requirements on that.
Okay.
Any more trick questions? And then anything over $1 million is going to be a 15% withholding. Okay. However, Texas American Title is going to make it super, super easy for you.
Oh, I believe.
Oh, do.
Much better
Because
than others.
if we ask, are you a foreign person? And that person says yes, we're going to take 15%. Boom. No, not if it's $300,000, not if it's $5 million, it's 15%. We're going to withhold. right off there. Okay, it makes it real simple. We believe that it protects all parties involved. Okay. Now, when does my customer get his or her their money back? Well,
By finding their income tax.
thank you very much. When they file their income tax return, okay, we have addressed the FIRPTA transaction at closing. We have the 8288, the 8288A, which are signed by the buyers, stating that they have withheld the money from the sellers. We send those with the check to the IRS.
So you gotta wait a whole year if it's February 1st.
So if you've got a foreign seller, you might say, "Are you sure you don't want to wait till November?" So then when they file their tax return in January, or whenever they file it, their TIN number is married up with the documents that we've already sent in. Those calculations are created, and then a refund is sent to whatever the IRS says is due as a refund. All right?
So that refund is for the seller, right?
I'm sorry?
The refund?
The refund is for the seller.
For the seller.
Seller.
Yes, because it was the seller's money that we pulled.
Right.
Okay, so really, in essence, it's just that we're taking part of those proceeds and sending them to IRS for a little bit.
Right.
The IRS is going to take whatever they feel like they need to take, because they always do, plus a couple dollars more, just cause, and then they'll send it back whatever they feel like.
So the buyer gets it and then he's responsible to give it back to the seller? Or-
No, the buyer does not get it. It goes right back to the seller.
So we take it and we send it to the IRS. Buyer never touches it. They can't run with it.
Yeah, the buyer never touches it. The buyer here, it's confusing because it's the way the regulation is written, but the buyer never touches the money. Okay?
And Willie was asking about the buyer side, because the buyer is saying, I'm gonna be responsible for these taxes if for any reason that the IRS doesn't get it. So that's the buyer side. Can you address that for her? She's saying, why is the buyers being held liable? Because
That's the way the regulation was written by Congress.
They wanna make sure whoever ends up with that
because
property.
if the seller flies.
They're gonna make that buyer responsible.
That's right.
So that goes back to the lien on the property. That goes, that's just like rollback taxes, absolutely.
It's in their hands.
Okay, so basically that is the presentation. If y'all want any further information, you can always Google, you can always call us. We're happy to help you out in any way, shape, or form, or ask questions that you all may have.
Will we
But-
get this PowerPoint presentation?
Where's the sign-in sheet?
Everybody signed in?
Yes,
If you
ma'am.
signed in, you'll get it.
If you signed in and I have your email address, I will send it to you.
Lady in the back, did you sign up, baby? Sign it, honey.
My name is Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We have a lot of classes like this that's kind of an eye opener for you. Is it an eye opener? Can I tell you the one takeaway now? I told Shelley, the one, I've sent in many, Hoskins,
Roberge Pascas.
Hoskins.
When I send you this PowerPoint, I will send you the information for Roberge Pascas.
Yes,
They are our accounting firm.
and they're the leading FIRPTA expert probably around the world.
Around the nation.
The IRS calls them. She came and she did a class with us, how long ago, Todd?
Last summer.
Last summer. And the first time ever, I've sent in many classes, I listen to Todd all the time, but this time it kind of like, oh my God, I gotta let agents know. Now, we've had, and I'm sure Amanda can attest to this, you spend time, if there was a FIRPTA, involved on a file, and you go, Mr. Seller, we gotta have to take 15%. And if Amanda's the agent, is my agent, I go, Amanda, move that file, get that out of there, take it to the other title company. You just could move it, no big deal. Now, if Amanda takes that's what I tell her to do, now she's a part of the tax evasion. That's the new thing for the agent.
So the other thing is that, well, Texas American Title is gonna make us pay this withholding because, our seller is a foreign person. But if I take it over to mom and pop title, they're not gonna do that. So we're just gonna close title with Texas American and we're gonna take it over to mom and pop title. You are now at that point part of tax evasion.
Yes.
And they'll.
That's the new
come
thing
after
for you guys.
And they'll come after you.
Yes. And not only just for one, they said 10 years, they're gonna look at you, and you may be doing it up, your business is on point up, you know, you're doing it right, but they're gonna look at you as if you're evading taxes. In 10 years, they're gonna come at you, plus there's a fine on top of that. I told Shelley, I told you guys that, and Todd, no, I sat in that class, that was like, wow, never heard that before.
I've
Right.
also heard clients or agents advise their sellers, well, if you sell it to your grandmother or your son,
It's fraudulent transfer.
and then the son's selling it and they can give you the money,
Fraud.
we will find out.
It's
and we'll say
fraudulent
you can't work
transfer. And for the IRS, the fraudulent transfer, we can go back 5 years.
And do you understand that when we initially, if you bring the Texas American title and you tell us to move it, we've already started the process with reversion again. They've already kind of seen what's going on. So now there's a red flag there for the IRS to say, and then it moves to another title company. And all of a sudden, wait a minute, it was over here and they're not taking tax. That's the problem.
That's the red flag.
That's the red flag.
So if everybody, please make sure you're signed in on the sign-in sheet.
And then, can I say a little bit?
Sure.
So I'm Amanda A. Bright. I'm over at the Luetta office, and I have done quite a few foreign sellers. It's pretty straightforward. Kathy with RPI or Roberge is amazing. My cell phone number, if you want to write it down, is 979-450. 979-450-1808. And then you can text me your name and I will send you my contact and you can save it. And then if you have any questions about this or anything else, you can always text me and I'll give you information. I'm happy to take your calls, texts, whenever. I know y'all work all the time, so I do too.
And if you like if you guys.
Did you
mind
guys
putting
sign
like
in?
your-
Did you sign in?
Amanda.
A Bright.
I think so. I mean, yeah, you
Also, for any of you that may be needing Legal 1 or Legal 2, I'm hosting Legal 1
Yes.
tomorrow, Legal 2 Thursday, virtually.
And I will
Simply
send that.
reply to my email and I'll get you on the list.
And there's a whole, and you guys already see the classes that I put together, excuse me, buddy. So all you have to do is QR scan those. I mentioned I have 2 live classes. I'm gonna send all this information to you guys when I get back to the office as well as. And if you don't.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of talking going on.
Like this, you need to. So,
It is a Zoom class.
okay, if you wanna take it.
Legal 1, Legal 2, both of them are Zoom tomorrow and Thursday.
I love that.
And then I've got 3 hours of contracts we're offering on March 22nd, February, March 22nd.
Yes, and Todd, I'm gonna send all that to them. What he just said, I'm gonna send everything to you guys. Okay, and, did I get everyone's card?
Yes, ma'am. Did she get everybody's call?
You get everybody's card? Okay, so we're gonna give away 3. Because we have 3 people here today. Amanda, do you get honors? Oh, wait, whoa. Oh, here we go, babe. Thank you. And if you did not get a one of the calendars, don't leave. I have some in the box.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Drum roll, please. Sheila Fisher.
Oh my God!
You looked at me. It happened.
Oh, we cannot. You know what, Sheila? I would have to find you something.
You need 3, right?
2.
All right. Try again. Jessica Pauling. Come on down, Jessica.
One more.
And last but
I
not
leave from a missing
least,
shoe that gets something.
Patricia Corp. There you go.
So what we have are these little you guys, if you like them, they're really nice. I have 2 and here we go. And I have 1 in the car for someone else. I'm going right out there and get it.
Thank you.
You go, and Patricia, Sheila, I'm gonna bring you yours. I'm gonna just, okay, just hold still, y'all. Don't go anywhere, Patricia. Just hold still. I'm gonna go get you what you need. Again, we have a lot of classes coming up at our office. If you find value in any of this, would you guys consider using us? Sometimes give us a chance.
Oh, I try, whenever they don't do
Whenever
it.
you Thank you so much. Oh, and look, she's passing these out.
Like 8 bright stars. I've never seen it. I did not know.
QR code. Can I borrow you? Who's got the QR code? Listen, if you just want to sit in on the class and you don't need the hours, just sit in on the class. Okay. Just sit in. You don't have to, but if you need the hours, you pay. If you sit in on the class, please sit in front of your computer because we
Are
have
you
to
gonna come to
monitor
the
you.
chocolate and champagne? We've got so much
My
chocolate.
baby, give me 1 second.
We need people to come because otherwise it'll just be around the office and I'll just be like,
Yeah, right. Oh,
I'll eat it all.
We have the same problem over here.
Yep.
There's always a cookie somewhere.
Yes.
When are you guys having another remind class?